Hey there, it's Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles and welcome to your Power Hour. This is your time to put what's on your mind on my mind, and we'll put our heads and hearts together and come up with a way to go from stuck to happy as fuck in a short amount of time as possible. Because we've all suffered enough, okay? Enough is enough. Let's just make the call. We don't have to do this anymore. That's why faster is better. And sometimes we got to slow down to speed up, okay? It's learning that finesse, okay? So today is exciting because we are talking about the gift of failure. And this is sort of rolling from the self-love experiment from Monday, where it was the anniversary of my first suicide attempt. And it's weird that I can say that in such an upbeat, positive way. You know, it really was like a lifetime ago. And what is so interesting is that on that day, I actually had been coming up with some hard stuff, especially 2 days before, the day before and the day before that, just really, like feeling like I'm beating my head against the wall. And a lot of times it's interesting that it would come up around the same time. Like this time of year is not JOYLYN friendly or hasn't been. Okay. So I actually had it set up for me to see a coach because this shit works. And worked through something and had a huge aha. And the words came through, I forgive you. And it's one of those exquisite moments where you don't know how exactly, but I just know that everything has changed and nothing is ever going to be the same because I really forgave myself. But it is the gift of failure. I failed to follow through and successfully kill myself. And for a long time after that, I really did consider it a failure, and it added to the pain and reasons to try it again. And so it's very interesting because I shared some of the recollection of that story. It was the first time, and I had been dealing with depression for quite a long time. And I'm going to get to some of the things that I know now that I didn't know then as far as why it got to be such a tumultuous, like, pressure cooker situation. But it was... Okay, we'll just go into that. Okay, so without me knowing then, what I know now was that I did have infant trauma. That was not, so there's two things about this. For one, it wasn't a made-for-TV movie. There was nobody beating me when I was an infant. There was nobody withholding food or refusing to touch me. It was simply that because of the circumstances, I was an identical twin, and in the 80s, that you've been touching for 9 months and had a partner there matters nothing. And we were slightly premature and high risk because of how we were born. I was breech, came out backwards. They immediately separated us and put us in separate incubators. Nobody thought about, oh my goodness, how traumatizing is that? You know, your whole entire world is now disoriented. Then there were medical complications with my mom, and she had to go back in the hospital for blood clots, so it was up to the rest of the family, including my dad, who is not emotionally available, okay, still had to work because he was supporting other kids. Those other kids were in elementary school. My oldest sister was in 8th grade, was actually one of the primary caregivers. She did a fabulous job, I do believe, but not necessarily, but wasn't able to be there because she had to go to school. So all of the rest of the family was filling in to making sure everybody got to school, got fed, got to work, all of those things. Our family really rallied. But being an infant under the age of 2 months, that's too many caregivers at a time. It's too chaotic and it is traumatic. It will scramble your brains. And that's a tough setup because when you're an infant, you don't have language, so you can't tell anybody how you're feeling or stressed. And when it comes up and you're disorganized, you can't even put it into words why you're feeling what you're feeling. It's just a lot of intense, and everybody just wants you to be normal. And then when it comes that early, there's a real tendency to dissociate, to actually just go somewhere else, leave yourself, go up to your head, come up with all these things. And so that pattern will continue through other things to where we can dissociate, which often tends to set you up for academic success. Because if you'll notice, counterparts who encounter trauma in other ways who get easily distracted, we know how to tune everything out. So we can read and we can tune other people out and be like, got this shit, okay? So there's a gift in everything, okay? We can count that in a gift of failure, okay? Whatever. Okay, but then following that, there was some actual trauma and abuse that followed that further scrambled the brains that because I had such a well-established pattern of dissociation from times I didn't even remember, I did that too. Totally left. Can only remember bits and pieces more of the place that I was than what actually happened. It's mostly been energetic and body workers that have been like, whoa, you got a lot of stuff in here. And I'm like, yeah, interesting. And only not until I was in my 30s that I started having bits of actual memories and then even some PTSD responses that happened when I was powder skiing and my skis got stuck and had that memory of I can't move and that panic. Okay, so those are sort of the things that at the time of when I was wanting to kill myself and wanting to just end it all, I didn't really know what was feeding into it. All I had known is that somehow, in some way, I ended up on a track of being perfect. And somehow being perfect was the way that I wasn't going to get picked for abuse. It was the answer to everything. It's how I was going to escape it. It was sort of the master key that was going to unlock it. Was I was going to be perfect. And that included academic success, and it also included what my body looked like. Because that's just what girls do, right? Like, you're supposed to look like Barbie, so I tried so hard. So having that kind of drive for that long, and if you know anything about perfect, that's actually unattainable here on this side of heaven. So can we say set up for failure, hamster wheel, exhaustion, burnout? What? Yeah. So we're in that. And then going through a tough relationship period at a really, it's say emotionally vulnerable time. Is there a time when they're not? But early college, okay? And struggling with this out-of-state relationship, being totally in love, being totally depressed, having really shit conversations on the phone, not really surprised that he wasn't having very much fun and trying to get out. And then me being like, how could you leave? All of these things. And coming back from a weekend where it looked like we were going to make it through, and then he says, hey, I found somebody else. And oh my goodness, the bottom dropped. And it went black. That dissociative, just black. There is nothing beyond this. This is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, ever, ever, ever. And I just, boom, over, done. I grabbed the knife and I started cutting. But here's the thing. It hurts. And so I didn't cut super deep, and so then I was just mad at it and wanted it to bleed. Okay, so then I end up in the hospital, have to leave college, get a lot of therapy. Okay, but now it's like I laugh at it, and trust me, I am not laughing at anybody who's in that space or in any how pathetic your attempts might have been. It's just coming from such a desperate place. But the gift of failure is multiple, okay? Number one is a lot of times when we fail, if we are willing to be really honest with ourselves, we didn't want to succeed, or we weren't ready to succeed. I actually sort of knew, even in that moment, I didn't actually want my life to be over, but I really had no creative or imaginative ability to see what was beyond this that could be better. It had been so dark and black and hurting for so long, and my drive for perfection wasn't attainable, so I could never reach it, and I just kept seeing failure, 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 failure. I could not see an achievement or a light at the end of the tunnel. And you know how I think is it Rumi who says, if you look around and it's all black, look inside, you might be the light. But I had never heard of Rumi at that time. And nobody was talking about things like this. It was really just in that, the early 2000s, it was 2000. People were just starting to come online to what depression was and recognizing it as something. And then even I found a doctor who said, you're not depressed, you have adrenal fatigue. And again, one of those things that I know now that I didn't know then, trauma and especially abuse will put you on a cortisol rush and stress out your adrenals to where, at 20 years old, you're in the crapper, you're exhausted. But nobody was talking about this, and I didn't know. So I couldn't think of anything beyond this. And my mom has always been one that wore rose-colored glasses, and I thought she was a little bit delusional and, oh, everything's going to get better. And it really sounded like crap. Because my mom was not an emotional person who could actually vulnerably share any actual instance in her life where she'd been so low, struggled with anything like this, could put her feelings into words, that she'd actually sat with her own feelings like this. So she always just told me, oh, you just shouldn't feel this way. Just look on the bright side. And that was so empty. And my dad also emotionally unavailable, trying to keep his own head above water. I believe he's actually a sensitive person, but for a lot of males, the only option they have is alcohol, so that's what it was. That's how our household was dysfunctional, was this whole enabling and secrecy and keeping things under wraps. He wasn't the abuser, by the way, just in case you were wondering, it was somebody else. So all of that was going on. I didn't even realize to what depths and extents I had really even become my own abuser. And so how then did this failure ended up becoming success? Well, it took a long time. I'll tell you that, okay? Way more than I was really ready and interested in. But one of the things was, it really was, like I was talking about in the self-love experiment a couple days ago, it was one of the early seeds of the Happiness Clinic. Because that's when the healing journey really took off, and I recognized something ain't working. This isn't how I want to be. And stumbled multiple more times. There were 2 other attempts in the years to come, I think 15 years ago or something like that is the last time. No, 11, something like that. It doesn't even matter. But to know now that those thoughts, like that it really does get better, because those thoughts don't even come to mind, and if they do, they feel weird. Like they feel like they're foreign. Like it just is like, that's the dumb thing. Like it'd almost be like, hey, why don't you take cyanide for your cough? You'd be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Hey, why don't you kill yourself because you got problems? I'd be like, that doesn't even make sense. Okay, so we're talking super, super fundamental change. And to where it's like, hey, the number on your scale does not equate to your worth. That's a weird way to look at life. Interesting. Okay, yeah. That isn't there. It sneaks up from time to time, I'm not going to lie. But it's really more that my body's like, I don't like carrying this extra weight. That's what it actually more is, worrying than anybody's not going to like me, okay? And then the other one that's, so sneaky right to come after and so very adult-like, is to equate yourself with a number of dollars in your bank account, okay? So numbers everywhere, okay? And they're definitive, okay? But actually, we know that's a bunch of crap too, okay? So failure is a gift depending on what we do with it. What I've learned is failure's feedback. And this is what every successful entrepreneur actually knows. Every successful person is built on a mountain of failures. But the failure was feedback. It was just an awareness of something that didn't work. But the thing too was the people who are honestly super successful, they knew that didn't work, but they didn't perseverate on it. They didn't stare at it and wonder, why didn't it work? Why didn't it work? They just knew always something will work. I have to find that, to where I'm going to look at what didn't work only for the sole purpose of finding something that will. Not to build any more evidence or narrative around I am a failure. It was this didn't work. What was it that didn't work? What will work? That's a big difference. Because the one is from self-doubt. And like I said, failure's feedback, self-doubt is disabling. To where when it's a doubting about our worth, what we're contributing to the earth, why we're even here. Because let me tell you, existential problems are so awesome, especially for overthinking high school and college kids, especially for people who want to like drink and become philosophers, especially if you have some sort of deep, hidden, subconscious belief that you're actually afraid to totally show up and set the world on fire because you don't think that you can, but you really want to. So just get curious about why you're here. Because it's a question that nobody can answer. And actually, the only person that knows is our soul and the creator. And the only reason is actually because I wanted to see what I could do. That's it. It's really actually, I was curious. I just wanted to see what I could do. The why you're here is you're here. That's it. It's just to exist and see what it's about. It's so simple, it's annoying. So I've just taken off 2 of those things for you, okay? But if you're doubting your worth, you have disconnected from your creative source. You have turned your back on the creator, on God, on the universe, on something else. And so the reason you can't see the light is because you actually just turned your back. Now the big problem is we're in a free will universe. Nobody can make you turn around. You have to do that by choice. But if we're willing to do that, everything turns around. Here's another thing that's so very interesting that I just learned. If you're talking about numbers, we think we got to do a 180 back to the light. 17 degrees. That's all it takes to change your reality. 17 degrees. That's it. It's just a little micro step. Just take a little, look at, I think I just turned 17 degrees. Oh my goodness. I still have virtually the same view out of my window. Nice, huh? Makes it a little bit more doable? Okay. So failure is feedback, and one of the things we can start to really know, you are not your thoughts, okay? Or the outcomes. You are not either one of those. You do not equal anything outside of you, okay? Your thoughts are largely informed and generated by your chemistry. Your feelings are going to create thoughts. Your thoughts are going to create feelings. They create a cybernetic loop, okay? So where a lot of them even got started were ones that you picked up when you were a tiny, tiny little person from 0 to 7, actually, even embryonic, of other thoughts that were being, around. You're a sponge at that time. You're in theta brainwave patterns. That's your primary pattern. It's part of why you sleep so much when you're little. It's part of why you're I don't know if it really explains why your head's big, but you're super receptive. You're just saying, I'm taking it all in. So when somebody has a deeply held belief, the world is a harsh place, it's dog-eat-dog world out there, money doesn't grow on trees, you got to fight for everything that you can, there's no such thing as a free lunch, everybody's out to get me. If those are the thoughts that somebody's holding and they're close and they hold them dear and they're close to you, you're going to pick them up, okay? It's just the design. But then once you get to a point and you've had so much failure, you're getting feedback that something isn't working. And it's not that you don't work. It's your thoughts aren't working for you. So we have to think different thoughts. Now what I love is Florence Scovel Shinn. She was a metaphysician from 40s, 50s, 60s. I don't really know. Awesome though, because she even says, we've all had, but the thoughts come so freaking fast and so do the emotions. They come so fast and we know kind of that we can choose them, but they come so hard and so fast that how do we stop them? You can control your words. That's where mantras come in. I like mantras a little bit better than affirmations because affirmations I feel are like, la, 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 la. I'm not going to listen. I'm just going to say the opposite, but the whole time it's just like noise over noise. I like mantras and questions because they're more invitations. They're actually easier to be in. To where it's like a mantra that I gave, last week? Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. Nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. And when you say that, it really starts to it's almost like they go in that and it starts to kind of disassemble. Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be because we're actually only getting 40 out of 1,000,000 bits of information at any given time because that's how powerful our brain filters. So everything's the opposite of what it appears to be because we're living on this side of an infinite, and even our retinas, everything is changing by lenses. So everything actually is the opposite of what it appears. But it isn't. Because our 5 senses are actually delivering this information and we're not floating off into space and walking on floors and not ceilings no, that person just broke my heart. They walked away, they blocked me, I can't call them or whatever, whatever it is. That's not a true story. You guys are going to think I'm a stalker. I'm actually the one who usually blocks. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But let's say, no, this is the number that's in my bank account. That is literally how many dollars are there. That's how many I could pull out and pay somebody. So no, I cannot afford that thing. Okay. But you keep saying it and it starts to change. And it's not, I have all the money I need in the world. Like, that's actually the truth, truly. But it's not always like, it's usually so far, it feels abrasive and it'll just bounce off. So having a mantra like that, or a what if. Hey, what if something else was possible and I just haven't seen it yet? Hey, what if something's going on and I just don't know it yet? What if this could turn out better than I think? What if I actually could come up with a creative idea? You know, what if I just didn't give a fuck for 5 minutes? You know, what if there actually was a God and he actually did care and this wasn't punishment? What if this wasn't punishment? What if this wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me? And don't ask for bad things to happen to you, but what if this was a gift? What if something good is going to come out of this? Like, what ifs are great questions to ask. So knowing that, and it's to challenge your thinking, and that's what I say about the Happiness Clinic programs. They're designed to challenge your present thinking instead of your present and future happiness. Challenge the thoughts that you're thinking instead of taking them as hard and fast and rules and absolute truth so that you can only create more of this, and so happiness still is going to get postponed and pushed out farther. Challenge the thinking. Know that you are not only your thoughts. You're the creator of your thoughts. So you can create different thoughts, and there are tools that I just mentioned that you can use to kind of get some, like the side door to your subconscious and be like, hey, maybe it could be something else. And it could be like, oh, maybe it could be something else. Someone else start looking for that, you know, because it doesn't stop. It just needs something else to do. Okay. Also knowing resistance is what slows things down to where I'm JOYLYN. I'm an Aries. Okay. I wanted it yesterday. And I've seen other people have it days and months before. So, waiter, this should be here now already, yesterday, okay? I know impatience and being pissed AF that it hasn't happened already, okay? But that's actually a form of resistance to what is that doesn't help. I also very often resist surrender because, yes, God is love, the universe is infinite possibilities in the 0 point field, and I talk about it all the time, but it ain't here right now. Seeing is believing, right? So, sometimes I resist surrender and letting the infinite universe come up with infinite ways that it could handle, because I found one great way that totally makes sense in my head. All of the dots already connect, so universe, bring it this way, because then I'll know I was right? It's total lack of trust, control freak, of course, yes, trauma response, okay? Entertaining, isn't it? Oh, gives us something to do. Gives you a little hit of cortisol, which we're so used to, okay? Because we are all a little bit of addicts to our own stress hormones. It's true. Until we train ourselves that is no bueno, and it actually doesn't feel good anymore. So yeah, I resist surrender often. It's my last resort. But oddly enough, and finally, more and more, I'm getting to be like, hey, remember when I tried that last, but it was the thing that worked? Maybe I try it sooner. And slowly, it's getting to where I am willing to surrender much sooner. Oh, that's a great question you can ask as far as challenging your thoughts. What would it take to be willing to change? What would it take to be willing to surrender? What would it take to be willing to think a different thought? Start with your willingness, okay? Because a lot of us are resistant AF because we've had trauma, because we have a lack of trust in ourselves, because that means then we're going to move to try to control everything. So we can ask different questions to get out some of the resistance so things can speed up a little bit more and be easier, okay? The other form of resistance is judgment. That's the critical evaluation of ourselves. And where yesterday was such a gift to finally forgive myself for all of the choices I'd ever made, for the lack of creativity that I displayed, it was really honestly the best I could do at that time for what I knew. And I let it go. So this critical evaluation, and there are times to be honest, to where you don't want to blow smoke up your butt, you know, and be like, everything's great. It's not about that. But just not beating yourself up. which will feel weird to a perfectionist. Oh, then I'm letting myself off the hook, and that's a slippery slope, and all the cliches that could possibly come from that, they're all going to happen all at once, and I'm going to be Jabba the Hutt, sitting on a blob, on a chair, broke, under a bridge, like let the cliches roll, okay? But it isn't. A lot of times we let ourselves off the hook. We take the lid off the pressure cooker. That actually is the steam and the thing that's been building it, to where then our brainwave patterns change and probably go from low beta to higher beta, honestly. We may get to alpha and a little bit more relaxed. That's where the creativity is going to flow. That's when all of a sudden you're going to be like, hey, you take a breath. Oh, hey, I could take another one of those. I could ask a question, okay? We have to stop being so hard on ourselves for what we have been doing and just be like, hey, I'm a scientist. I recognize that doesn't work. How do I know? I have empirical evidence that is my stress level, okay? It is my eyebrows and the unibrow that I have. It has been that I think I scared a small child walking down the street because I was so pissed, and this was my smile. Okay? It's empirical evidence. My shoulders are up here, my breath is shallow, I don't feel good. That's objective. You're knowing it. You're living it. Okay, it's enough. We can let it go now. All right? All right. Then what else we got on here on this outline? Because I think I'm all over the place. The truth of it all is everything's energy. And when we finally let our thoughts, our emotions be emotions, and not be who we are, then we can become more willing to change. Then everything becomes changeable, because energy is super energetic. It's very morphable. It's very workable. It is slippery because it is in space. It is space. It's what? It's everything, okay? So everything's connected, so everything attaches to everything else, so even the little changes create big changes. 17-degree shift makes huge difference, okay? Saying I will instead of I wish, huge difference, just 2 letters. Amazing. And that just came. Wow, that was really cool. Okay, so the gift of failure is there is feedback. We can become more honest, like a scientist, and just recognize this showing up the way that I'm feeling, that I don't like it, that is feedback. Something isn't working. I'm not broken, but something isn't working. But here's the thing. Feedback's failure, but self-doubt will be disabling. If I start to wonder, was it me? Was it something I said? Was it something I did? Is it me? Like there's something fundamentally flawed or wrong with me? This is why I can't have it? That is what will keep you looping and swooping and swirling around the toilet hole, okay? It isn't... They're what I call broken questions. What's wrong with me? Why is this taking so long? I ask that one a lot. Why is this taking so long? And even there's a different attitude, because it's here. Like the question can be the same. What's going on here? Instead of what's really going on here? You see the energy shift? So asking broken questions will keep you looking for what's broken, thinking that if you fix it, things will get fixed. It doesn't work that way. Failure's feedback is just letting you know whatever this is didn't work. Okay, all you have to do then is do something that's not this. What was I doing just then? Oh, and it's funny. One time that happened on a mountain bike ride. I went on a mountain bike ride and I did something and I got pissed and I got off the bike and I shoved it. And that always set off my ex, because he built that bike, so he was real protective of it. And it hurt his feelings when I wasn't liking something that he really wanted to share with me. And then one time that actually irritated me. I'm like, God, that's such an immature response. Like, what happened right before that? And I actually, right before that, had a flash. I thought, I should already be good at this. Well, that's pain. So that when you mess up and you should have already been good at that, there was that critic right there. You should already be good at this. And think of all the things that could follow. And why might my trigger level be like hair, like, whoo, you just brushed. Yeah, it didn't take much. Because you should already be good at this. That's such a bitchy thing to say. But I was saying that to myself all the time. And then once I saw that, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense of why I responded the way I did. That's really actually intensely painful. It's also a really harsh, critical thing to say that I wouldn't say to somebody else. given my position of how long I've been mountain biking versus who I'm with and how long he'd been mountain biking and the trail that we were on and the element that I just tried to get over and I didn't on the first try, like, okay, that doesn't work anymore. And really it's to start failing forward so that we don't have to make the same mistake over and over again so many times. We're going to do it, of course, but we just don't have to do it as many times, because each time can give us maybe slightly, subtly different feedback of how to refine it and get it. Like Edison, I found 10,000 ways it didn't work. He didn't just mess up once and be like, oh, that light bulb didn't work. I wonder what. Oh, that's what it is. Let me try this. And then boom, oh, it worked. No, it was about 10,000 of those, okay? I wonder if he actually kept count. I don't know. But anyways, but everyone moved forward to where he's the one totally credited with electricity, even though somebody else had it a little bit better. But that's okay. Light bulbs are awesome, all right? I like them. So anyways, let me get back because we're at the end of time here and I just want to make sure I wrap up. It's being honest and also knowing that sometimes we're failing because we don't actually want to succeed because the desire might not be what is actually true to our hearts. Like when it was all about weight and being on a scale, that's not what it was. I just wanted to be loved for being me. But again, it couldn't ever come from outside. I needed to love me for being me. And even if I got to the size that I thought that I should be, even if I did that, I knew the love was conditional, so I'd have to blow up my body and get bigger to where until I actually started to love myself. So being curious that maybe the failure is actually because it's something that doesn't actually light you up or that you care enough to have it, or that it has to come from an outside source that'll never be totally satisfactory. All of these things are invitations to self-love. Then, recognizing things as gifts. You know, they're all gifts. They're all invitations to love yourself more. Just to remember you've got tools, to remember that you're the one that created this. It was by your thoughts, by your energy. So all you got to do is just shift that. You don't even have to find out what was wrong with what you were doing. You just have to not do it anymore. Like just do something different. Brush your teeth with your left hand, you know, and sometimes when you're eating, like throw shit at your face because you miss your mouth. Because, you know, some of us, I mean, I've practiced enough. But that's how it started. I'd be like, I feel like a baby here. But having me write my name with my left hand, ooh, you can't read that. Anyway, but let's say that failure can be a gift. Because if we succeeded in obtaining that which didn't really light us up, was that even success? So there may be a total gift in failure, and then recognizing that some of our biggest mistakes or harshest criticisms or the darkest moments that we've gone through, that if we just somehow maintain the grit to just take a breath and put another foot forward or pause so we don't just keep stepping in the same direction, and then when we say, okay, I'm going to pivot, 10 degrees because that's all I got in me right now, but take a step, that's an attempt, that's a rep, on your behalf, that you're going to have information that's going to be a gift to somebody else going through that. Because like I said, so much of what I talk about now, all of the programs that I've designed for the Happiness Clinic are because I wish somebody was talking about things and speaking in my language when I needed it. And there has been so much information, science-based, and my own lived experience as far as what does work and what doesn't work. And a lot of traditional, conventional therapy isn't meeting us at the pace that we're ready to go. So if you do want to get on the fast track and learn the dance of when to slow down to speed up and when to push through stuff and when to keep going and not giving up too early and when to take a break and let things come to you, that's what coaching is for. It really allows a lot of facilitation to grease the wheels and help you get that and interpret your failure, your feedback, and put it in a way to frame it to where you can fail forward instead of keep falling back in your own shit. Okay, that's what coaching's for and about. These are the conversations we're going to have. I'm going to make sure that, hey, your future forward focus, that's what's going to determine the whole thing. So let's make sure it's something that lights you up. And I'm going to keep reminding you it's there. I'm going to show you tools that work, that include your body, because that's where the trauma got stored. And that might be part of what's not getting addressed, is why you keep hitting your head against it, because it was either pre-verbal or it's just locked in the body and the body needs to express. It's got to get metabolized. And then how to actually include your subconscious and your superconscious, the soul, to where you can accelerate these processes. That's what Love Yourselves is all about. It's learning how to do that and then getting seasonal repetition, because it's a year, so that you're going to get a minimum of 4 real good runs at this, to where you understand, oh, I set a target. Oh, the old shit came up. It's coming up to go. Oh, I can use this tool. I can use this tool. Oh, it's, yeah, that makes sense for what I've been through. Oh, here's how I let it go. Oh my goodness, that person's story really resonated with me. Oh, yeah. Why didn't I get that? Oh, this is like a totally, yeah, it's spiral. I see that, but this is next level. Amazing. Love yourselves enough to reframe your failure as feedback, to get clear on what it is your heart's desire, so that you're actually motivated and inspired by your failure to keep moving forward and shift and redirect, instead of getting so fascinated with the failure itself. Okay? That is how to love yourselves. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay? We're dealing with serious shit in a more playful way. That's what Love Yourselves is about. Okay? Let's talk. Enrollment's open for, I don't know, a week or something more. Anyways, yes, and next week is Valentine's Day. I love Valentine's Day. So there is so much that I just have to say, JOYLYN, shut up. Thank you so much for being with me and watching and listening. I'm keeping it shorter so that it doesn't take up your whole day. I hope this was a gift to you that really helps you see your failure as feedback, get out of disabling self-doubt. It all is about how you're questioning yourself. Is it with love or is it out of love? Let's get you into loving yourself. Love yourselves. All right? I'll talk to you again in Power Hour next week. Until then, I love you dearly, and I hope you have a great day. Mwah.